Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Welcome to our growing session of Pariprashnena Sevaya. We are from South India, SSKBK, and we have a slightly, again, different venue. We have received some today. We still have a little bit of a backlog. So before we vacation, Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Takshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadatva Padantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gradhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakti Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Sri We have been encouraging devotees to read from this most important book, speaking about Varnasrama. It is a main theme that we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as other scriptures. As we mentioned, we'll take a few minutes just to read different sections, quotes actually from our founder Acharya. I will take a new chapter each time we will have our session here. And this is the second chapter entitled Different Duties for Different. This was in the meeting when Srila Prabhupada was in New Vrindavan on June the 9th, 1969. And some of the key themes in this exchange are as follows: balancing work and worship, sannyasi's role in community development, and third, our mission of making people peaceful and happy. Rather crucial theme in our present context. So, Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that 4:2, Lord Krishna and all others are his servants. Ishvara means controller. Actually, only Krishna is master. Even Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, or incarnation, them are, in one sense, even Radharani, all are servants. Ekale Ishvara Sabritya. So, in that sense, in this new Vrindavan, the master Krishna and we are servants. There are division of duties of the servants, and they should discharge. Just like Krishna consciousness movement, there are certain duties entrusted to certain devotees. This will help us more progress. So in this meeting, I think we should allot different kinds of duties to and execute. I don't think it can be more than 2 hours. Are in many ways closely related to varnas and ashramas, although they are still there as well within a temple situation. So we will go immediately. There are no particular announcements today, maybe just one actually. I will send a reference of a that took place at the college by Danavir Maharaj, and Maharaj is answering for some 45 minutes or so a series of questions to how should an aspiring devotee, the current crisis is for devotees something that is, as we say, to be expected. Srila Prabhupada has spoken on numerous occasions and extensively as well, in a general way as to the how precarious the situation is in the material world, what we call threefold miseries of life. That is one thing. Case of misery, wherein the repeated problems of birth, death, old age, and disease are constantly present. In addition, or as an example of this, Srila Prabhupada mentioned how the more we deviate from what is meant to be the norm in terms of the Vedic culture, in terms of the Vedic lifestyle, then we create disturbances, we create imbalances both within ourselves and in society as well. So everyone pretty well understands and has identified that the present crisis of this COVID-19 or coronavirus is linked with different diseases that are found in different animals, species, and there's some kind of link between bats and serpents or snakes, which somehow, because people around the world, in different countries, including India, unfortunately, are addicted and accustomed to eating the flesh of animals. And when animals become diseased, due to various reasons, and this is consumed by humans, then humans also are prone to become diseased. So this is part of the whole very complex scenario which is unfolding before our eyes, and there are definitely many important lessons for us to learn from that. One of the main lessons is how we are, again, as Prabhupada instructed us and reminded us on numerous occasions, we as devotees, we as followers of Sanatana Dharma, should of remaining dependent on an unreliable, unnatural, unauthorized system, which is basically all-pervading around the world, where the primary goal of life is not at all to help individuals become self-realized, where the goal of life rather has been to simply increase our material well-being and comfort, to accumulate more and more, to consume more and more, the result of which is, amongst many other things, we are destroying on the planet as it is. This can be verified through various statistics that are there in research. We are destroying on a daily basis between 150 and 200 species. We're destroying their habitat, we're destroying the whole species because of so many irregularities. So therefore, nature, we are disturbing as human beings nature in many ways, and therefore this is a natural reaction that is coming from nature, to be expected. How to become part of the solution of the ongoing and future crisis? There will always be crises in the material world. And main crisis is that as long as we don't understand who we are, and unless we cultivate the science of dharma, the science of sanatana dharma, what is our primary duty and responsibility in life, then we will go against the laws of nature. Anyone who is not practicing Krishna consciousness, anyone who's not endeavoring for self-realization, he actually is going against his nature, against his spiritual nature. Because by nature, Mamaevangsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, we are the eternal parts and parcels of Krishna. One thing. Secondly, when we don't know what is meant to be our material nature, our material duties, our material responsibilities, and this is referred to, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, prescribed duties for humanity, which is a big topic, and some devotees and some of the questions coming up are asking this question as well. Then we create disturbances, we create havoc, we create, as we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a situation called Varna Sankara, where things are totally disorganized, disconnected, and this brings about chaos, confusion, anxiety, competition, and all kinds of bad effects socially, economically, politically, health-wise, ecologically, etc. So the guidelines have always been given, have always been present, actually, especially in the Vedic literatures, and therefore, for those who are devotees of Krishna, those who are Vaishnavas, those who have this great, great, great fortune of having this source of knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, it is our prime duty and responsibility to assimilate that knowledge and to distribute that knowledge as widely as possible, because knowing, and this was in the forefront, has always been in the forefront of our acharyas. Our acharyas went out of their way to preach this message because they understood as long as one does not have this knowledge, one will be engaged in sinful activities, one will be acting in ways that will disturb the natural orders of life, etc. So, solution actually is for ourselves to become strong in our Krishna consciousness, to understand this philosophy, both in its theory and also especially in its practical application, something that we have not been so good at doing. The more we are able to do this, then we will be able to face other major crises that will come up. Again, in a general way, it's always a crisis in the material world. At any moment, we will be called to leave this body. So it's a crisis situation. Some moments in our lives and some moments in history, in societies and countries, there are more acute levels of crisis, but always a situation in the material world is a situation of crisis, you see. So the more we are Krishna conscious, that's the best way to be able to deal with these different crisis situations. More could be said, but we have other questions and we're trying to cover as many as possible. This next question is from Hyderabad, from Champakalata Devidasi, and this is our 11th question. Sometimes devotees are caught in tricky family situations and are unable to fully follow the mood and mission of Sri Guru. Should the devotee feel satisfied with or whatever service that comes her way, will the Lord forgive the aspiring devotee for the inability to fully execute devotional service? So this is a question in the context of family duties, family responsibilities, which possibly at times may make it difficult for one to fully engage in ways that one would like to be engaged, or possibly in ways that the spiritual master or the founder acharya of our society has given. Main thing we should understand is that in whatever situation we may find ourselves, we can all endeavor to the best of our ability to follow the general instructions that are given by our founder Acharya, and whenever it is possible and practical to execute certain activities which will not be in any way compromising our situation in a family situation, we can do that. At other times we may have to reduce some of these activities, but the basic activities of Krishna consciousness, we should always continue. The spiritual master and Krishna is satisfied by the sincere efforts that a disciple performs in the basic instructions and the basic vows that one takes at initiation, which is to chant the holy name 16 rounds and to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness. Over and above that, any other preaching activity, any other service, that may vary according to Kala Desha Patra, time, place, and circumstance. And sometimes our family situation will be allowing us to perform certain activities, like visiting a temple more often because we're closer to a temple, but then families sometimes for various reasons may move or relocate to another city, and one may find oneself away from the temple. So that going to the temple will be impeded, and therefore one must find other ways to associate with devotees. We can and should carry out basic activities of Krishna consciousness in our homes, especially nowadays when we are forced to, actually by the practically more and more countries, as we know, are under lockdown, and therefore people are forced to be at home. We need to find innovative ways to actually bring this message of Krishna consciousness, and as we mentioned yesterday, some of our devotees, some of our leaders within the society have already formulated some of these initiatives, such as this Japathon, having devotees from all over the world every Sunday be chanting in the evening, I believe from 5 to 8 o'clock, chanting on japa, or also the initiative as started by His Holiness Lokanath Maharaj, performing Harinam Sankirtan every day from 5 to 5:15. There are so many opportunities. Internet. Hopefully this will be a temporary situation where we can again go out, when we can again associate as well with devotees and take up our regular book distribution door to door, our regular Harinam Sankirtan in the streets, different streets of cities and towns and villages around the world, etc. For the time being, devotee learns by praying to Krishna, he becomes inspired. Krishna, the Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam, Krishna gives one the intelligence how to actually engage in activities of devotional service. So Guru and Krishna are pleased by the sincere efforts that devotees will be doing, and in this way we have to learn to adjust to situations and continue to the best of our ability to advance and progress in Krishna consciousness, keeping in mind always the mood and the mentality and desire of our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. We will go to another question. This is a question from a devotee from Switzerland who is not in Switzerland, who was supposed to be in Switzerland, but because of this lockdown is now in Bangalore. He was here at SSKBK for some short time. So here is the question. At the moment, I'm reading a lot about Varnashrama Dharma. Very good. We hope more people will find time to read about Varnashrama Dharma, which, again, to remind everyone, still happens to be 50% of Srila Prabhupada's unfulfilled mission. That's 50%. And he continues, this is Manuel, and therefore, by reading a lot about Varnashram, I think about my duty, both material and spiritual. That is good. In Srimad Bhagavatam is the following verse from the 11th canto, chapter 5:41. Anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligations, and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. Here's a question. It appears for me that we can use this verse as an excuse not to do our duty and leave everything for the sake of spirituality. Maharaj, can you please elaborate about this verse in general and in connection with Varnashrama Dharma? Very good question. So, this verse from the Bhagavatam is basically explaining that our foremost priority, our foremost duty and responsibility actually is to progress and advance in Krishna consciousness. And when the performance of certain duties may be a major obstacle for us to do that, then they can be at times left aside. We should be careful, however, and not take this in a general way. Simultaneously, the system of Varna and Asrama is given by Krishna to facilitate one to progress and advance in spiritual life. In the beginning of our movement, for example, many of our first disciples of Srila Prabhupada who had become married or who were already married, when they came to know about the importance of sannyas, many requested Srila Prabhupada to take sannyas, although they were married. It was not an easy situation, and On some occasions, Srila Prabhupada actually gave permission, but without, with rather the consent of the wife. Srila Prabhupada on other occasions did not give permission, and especially where there were children involved. So in other words, if someone is already in householder life, is having children, and his children are still grown up, and Prabhupada would sometimes write to some of his devotees and explain this point, that giving himself as an example, I was a householder, I was having children, and I was not so much, although my wife was very faithful and very good servant, doing her duties, I was not very attached to householder life. But being a householder, I waited for my children to grow up, and then I took to Vanaprastha. We should not, it is also another important aspect, that before making any kind of major decision, which is not in keeping with prescribed duties and responsibilities that are there in society, one should consult with senior Vaishnavas, or one should consult with one's spiritual master. So it is very important to understand how Varnashrama Dharma, in the same way that Bhagavad Dharma, which is the science of the spirit soul, the science of the spirit soul, Atma Gyan, the science of the soul, is given by Krishna, created by Krishna. Simultaneously and similarly, the science of Varnashrama Dharma, for those of us in the material world, is also created by Krishna, is also very scientific, and we should, in general, work within that God-created system of Varna and Ashrama. Knowing, as I mentioned a little earlier, that at times we may slacken and not completely, rigidly follow that system. There's a very nice statement, a very important one, given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which I quoted a few times in his Sajjana Toshani. Sajjana Toshani, one of the writings of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whereby he explains that Varnashrama Dharma is the social system in which Vaishnavas in their conditioned state follow. So we may think that, well, we are Vaishnavas, we don't have to follow. Not according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and also not according to Srila Prabhupada. There are many explanations on this given by Srila Prabhupada, who strongly emphasize the importance of introducing the social system of Varna and Asrama, although simultaneously understanding theologically or theoretically that Varnashrama is not per se dependent on bhakti or devotional service. That, however, does not mean that we negate or reject the system of Varna and Asrama. And one of the main reasons why there is so much of chaos within modern day society is because of this absence, actually, of a regulated lifestyle in the lives of the majority of people. And we can recall as well how Srila Prabhupada mentions that civilized human being or advanced civilization begins with the establishment, social system of Varna and Asrama. This is nicely further elaborated by Narada Muni, wherein he speaks about the fundamental, basic qualities, 30 qualities that are meant to be developed. And Prabhupada explains in one of the purports, and from among those who develop these 30 qualities, varnashrama can be introduced. So it is good that you're reading up on varnashrama dharma, and anyone who does so will come to know more clearly about one's spiritual duties and responsibilities, as well as one's material duties and responsibilities. And this, in the beginning stage especially, should be done taking counsel, advice, and association from senior devotees and from the spiritual master. We will go to another question here. This is question number 13 from Rajaram Prabhu in Hyderabad. Dandavats Maharaj, does one's consciousness improve if one is living with cows and serving cows? How different will be the quality of our chanting and bhajan when we perform in a gosti mindset? Yes, the last portion I don't quite get here. In gosti, gosti generally means an association. We speak about istagosti, associating with devotees, and also, so Vedic culture actually is built upon this principle and concept of actually daily associating with cows. By Krishna's arrangement, I was mentioning yesterday that I changed venue. I came from the Bhakti Kutir to the guest house. And lo and behold, when I open my window in the morning, in the room where I take rest, the first darshan I have is of cows, because the Goshala, the Goshala, or Sayadri Surabhi Goshala, where we have some 50 cows, is right beside. And not only that, because I'm here now, every day our bulls come at a certain time and our cows come also. This is a service that cannot be interrupted even at this time of crisis. But actually, when one is with cows, because this is the question here, does one's consciousness improve? Absolutely. Absolutely. Cows are in the mode of goodness. Brahmanas are in the mode of goodness. Mode of goodness. Therefore, it is mentioned that cows and brahmanas belong to the same family. And therefore, in the Vedic culture, everyone would be living with cows. I mean, literally. I had personal experience a few years back in visiting one particular village, and there are many such villages, where in each house of that particular village, because that's the custom, that's the tradition, in each house of the village, when you walk in the house, on one side of the house, it was on the left side of the house is the living room, where people eat, where people stay and sit. And on the right side of the house is the Goshala. There's nothing in between. Cows are in the house. Because cows are considered part of family in Vedic culture. And this is one of the greatest detriment and greatest errors and mistakes of modern day society, based on total misunderstanding of the principles of economics and basic misunderstanding of the principles of food production and total misunderstanding of how to preserve our ecology in proper balance. To have disconnected the cows from the land, number one, and to have disconnected humans from the cows. Most humans, now look at the situation. Just people are caught up in what Prabhupada called, pigeonholes. Any high-rise apartment where you have a balcony of 4 by 6 feet or whatever, and that's your space for fresh air, so-called fresh air. Actually, there's no fresh air. And one is actually stuck up in this kind of situation. This is very, so we are separated from the land, and we're separated from the cows. And therefore, this affects our consciousness, and it also affects our health as well. And that is one of the main reasons why the Vedic culture is advocating an agrarian-based lifestyle, and why Vedic culture is primarily an agrarian-based society, and agrarian-based culture, and agrarian-based economy. We have to think about this very deeply, because the more we understand what this means, we will easily be able to conclude what is the main problem in modern day society, and also what is the solution. So definitely this will also be affecting the quality of our chanting. All around, being with cows, serving cows, seeing cows, touching cows, serving cows, cooking with cow dung, fresh cow dung. This is unheard of in the Western countries. People just don't know these things. Is most conducive both in terms of physical well-being as well as mental, ecological well-being. And until and unless we reintroduce or come back to these concepts and principles that are given to us in the Shastra, that have been again and again and again repeated by our founder Acharya, what should be our strategy? Our strategy is simply not to continue what we are doing now. False strategy in terms of continuing this artificial, unnatural, dangerous, highly dangerous, volatile modern system of education. And understanding that actually village life, where one actually worships the land, where one actually worships the cows, where one actually worships one's father and mother, where one is conscious of the natural gifts of nature given to the Lord, and therefore properly utilizes them in the service of Krishna. Only then we can look for a better situation in society. So definitely reconnecting with cows will improve our chanting, will improve our bhajan, and therefore it is one of the fundamental principles. Prabhupada mentions actually that our Krishna consciousness is for the purpose of protecting brahmanas and cows. Namo brahmanya devaya go brahmana hitaya cha jagat hitaya krishnaya govindaya namo namaha. When cows and brahmanas are protected, then the whole world actually becomes protected. We will go to our last question, which is question number 14 from Abhiram Prabhu, who is in Tumkur, near Bangalore. I hope everyone is doing well in these different locations. Krishna has been very kind. I was about to leave SSKBK to go to Mangalore actually about 10 days ago. Krishna changed all of that, and I'm eternally indebted to him for that and many other things. What is prescribed duties and how to know prescribed duty? So we're touching on this point a little bit. Most question prescribed and prescribed duties are both on the spiritual level as well as the material level. Prescribed duties on the spiritual level means knowing that we are eternal spirit soul. Jiver Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. That is our foremost and first prescribed duty, to act on the spiritual platform as devotees, as servants of Krishna. On the material platform, according to our connection with the modes of material nature, according to other factors as well, we have different duties and responsibilities to perform. How to know one's prescribed duties? Actually, Varnas are there to help one understand one's prescribed duties. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that one's Varna is determined by one's qualities, which will then determine one's karma or activities, which in turn indicate what are one's natural duties. So Vedic culture gives us this very broad but very specific at the same time division of 4 prescribed duties, either as brahmanas, intellectual class, the 4 varnas, as we all know as devotees: intellectual class, administrative class, productive class, and laborer class or servant class. We can look at these divisions in another way. The first 3 being natural leaders in society. Brahmanas are natural leaders who depend on Krishna. Kshatriyas are also natural leaders who also depend on Krishna and who are given different powers and responsibilities and resources to actually do things on their own. Vaishyas are also natural leaders who also depend on Krishna, of course, but who have also received by nature abilities to produce things practically from nothing. And if one is not naturally falling into any of these categories, then he's not a leader. He's not a natural leader. And if one is not a leader, then one is meant to be a follower. So Vedic culture, Vedic society, and Varnashrama Dharma trains individuals. This is very important. Trains individuals to become ideal leaders, individuals to become ideal followers. And when the focus is on serving Krishna, either as a leader or as a follower, everyone is happy because all of us are engaged in the same activity and the same purpose of pleasing Krishna, of serving Krishna. The question was asked days back in our present context, how to actually go from one's present situation to a more ideal and favorable situation. Either in the next session or in 2 sessions from now, we'll be looking at this a bit more closely in more details. So we are close to the end of our session here this afternoon. I again would like, as well as on the material level also. We hope to continue our daily broadcast as we are doing so far by Krishna's mercy. And again, we invite devotees to write in and send any comments. Some of you did yesterday. Hopefully the situation or presentation today, with the good efforts of my good assistant, Rameshwar Prabhu, who is right behind the camera. He's the only person who is able to come in my room at this time. Otherwise, I, as many of us, am endeavoring to follow this directive that is given, that we should remain at home. In our case, here at SSKBK, it means in our quarters, in our room, and unless one has specific duties, since we have cows here, we have a few devotees who are doing their Go Seva every day. We have a temple, we have our Sri Jiva every day, blowing the conch shell in the morning, 5 o'clock is when we have Mangalarti, but he's the only one attending Mangalarti at this time. At this present period, here in India, we have different situations in different countries. We don't know how long this lockdown, the announcement was made for India up until the 15th of April. I just heard today that for the US, they will be extending their lockdown till the end of April. So they have 1 full month ahead of lockdown. We have 2 weeks. Of course, we don't know whether it may or may not be extended. Whatever the situation may be, actually the devotees, and we should know this, and we should pray to Krishna to help us understand more and take the necessary actions. We should know that by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, and by our Acharya's mercy, and by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by this knowledge of Krishna consciousness that we are receiving, that we are cultivating on a daily basis, by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, by chanting our rounds, by associating with devotees, which may differ from time to time, especially at this critical time. All of these activities, all of this training, all of this knowledge that we have been cultivating is actually meant to position the devotees in the most ideal situation, in the best situation. Most devotees are meant actually to be the most qualified and ready to deal with crisis situations. And therefore we must come to rise to the call, so to speak, and be exemplary in how we follow basic instructions that are given in our particular area, whether it's the country in which we are in. There's all kinds of very irregular situations. Devotees from India who are outside of India, devotees from other countries who are in India, who are supposed to be back to their... So many things. So as devotees, we should pray to Srila Prabhupada and to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give us the strength and the courage and the intelligence and the inspiration to do the needful and to help as best as we can in this very trying situation. And we can all come out of this regardless of what may happen. Some of our devotees have already left their bodies in connection with this disease. So it is not that some of our devotees may not be affected, but the devotees nevertheless remain the best prepared individuals to actually cope with this crisis situation. So I pray that we all take advantage of these important instructions that are there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is an opportunity for us to see and to balance actually how we have these two areas of spiritual swadharma on the one side and material swadharma. And I'll just finish on this point. Sometimes we hear devotees, I've heard this a number of times, that Krishna consciousness is the spiritual solution to all problems. Granted, true, I accept. But beyond that, one may say, what do you mean beyond that? In addition to that, there's nothing beyond spiritual, but in addition to that, there's a dimension which we should not forget. Krishna consciousness does not only give us the spiritual solutions in terms of our spiritual duties and responsibility, but Krishna consciousness also gives us the material solutions in terms of what is ideal, what is meant to be the ideal way to live, what is meant to be the ideal way for householders to work and to earn money, what is meant to be the ideal way to interact with Mother Nature, what is the ideal way to care for cows, to care for the land, etc. There's a vast amount of knowledge, treasure house of knowledge in our Vedic literatures in regards to natural Vedic farming, in relation to holistic cow care. Within our ministry here in India, we're just beginning. We've just, in the last maybe 1 or 2 years, we've just, in a very small way, we've begun to give a few presentations with the help of other devotees here in India on some of these topics. There's an urgent need to actually spread this information so that our devotees, and even beyond our devotees, people in general in society can come to understand. Farmers, for example, in villages, I just finished visiting 108 villages here in India in our Dharma Gogram Yatra, and this is a common major problem. Most of our farmers are caught up in very incongenial, undesirable activities, which is destroying their soil, which is destroying their lives, their families, etc. So let us take advantage of what Srila Prabhupada has given us. Let us remain strong, positive, and very determined to help our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada fulfill this mission of Krishna consciousness. Thank you all very much. Jai Srila Prabhupada.